Hey CCMS, Mr. T here, chilling in the garden. I'm gonna go over a little bit of some education about bananas. So we like to call this in the gardening world the morphology of a plant. So we're gonna discuss the morphology of a banana plant. So one second here. So what we're looking at, this is Billy. Y'all should be familiar with Billy. He's a little bit bigger, got some more leaves on top, but otherwise, we're over here in the garden, in this part of the garden. And I'm gonna start out with showing y'all what the bananas are looking like. So I'm gonna try to zoom in here so y'all can see. So right here, we're looking at the bunch. And the bunch is connected to this long stalk that you see right there. And these are the bananas right here. So far we have a few fingers of bananas. I'm gonna go over what all this means here shortly. I just wanted to give you all a nice picture what we were looking at before we get started. And before we also get started, I'm gonna show you down here. And what we're looking at are all the pups. What they call the pups are like baby banana plants. And they're all coming out of the main stalk or the stem right here. So it's pretty big. And that's the one that the bananas are coming out of. And then we have the smaller ones, what they call pups or shoots, and they're coming out of the ground. You can see that from down there, right? What's up, Lola? All right, we're gonna keep talking about Billy here. So, when we're talking about Billy as a whole, this is actually Billy's whole family here. And what's cool about Billy is that the main plant that we're talking about that's actually producing the bananas is called the parent plant. So Billy is the parent plant, and these are all of Billy's pups that are growing out around Billy, out of the ground. So the entire plant is actually an herbaceous plant. And when I say herbaceous, you want to think herb. So not necessarily a tree. So Billy is not a tree. I know a lot of times we say Billy the banana tree, but really we mean Billy the banana herb. It's actually the world's largest herb. And I'm sorry y'all, it is super windy today. I wasn't expecting that. When I say herb, you have to kind of think the stems themselves are not very woody. They don't have wood inside. They're just actually layers and layers and layers of the leaves. As you can see, the leaves are coming out. This is a brand new leaf that came out of right here. And you can see the leaf before, and the leaf before, and the leaf before, and this would go all the way down. You can see all the different layers. See that? It's like an old layer I can kind of peel off. You can kind of see what the inside would look like. It actually smells really good. It has a lot of liquid in there, a lot of moisture. Can't really see it squeezing out there. Banana plants are perennials. And if y'all remember from class, perennials is a plant that continues to grow every year. It'll come back every year and continue to grow, compared to an annual, which is only gonna grow for that year. It might produce seeds and you could plant those seeds again yourself, or it might reseed itself, but the main plant's gonna die. So what's interesting about bananas is, like we said, the main parent plant is the one that's going to produce the fruit, or the bananas, that are right up there. Once Billy is done producing these bananas, we're going to cut down Billy. We're going to cut down Billy, or the parent plant. And what we're going to leave are all of Billy's pups. But what's cool, don't be too sad, because what's really cool about this is that each one of Billy's pups have the exact genetic makeup of Billy. So they are essentially twins, Billy's twins, or his babies that are identical twins. And so once we get rid of Billy, we're gonna get rid of the big giant stalk. We're gonna cut that down eventually, pretty much all the way to the ground. So this big giant part won't be here, but all of these will eventually grow just as big as Billy and continue to produce bananas. So each one of his pups will produce more bananas, which is really cool. So look at this. We already have, let's see if we can count all these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. My 9, one's behind. And then over here, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And there's possibly more that are popping up back there. So we'll say about 15. And more will continue to come. So 15 more plants that we can move to different parts of the school, or we can leave a few here and have 15 more bunches of bananas, which would be really cool. And so far, this one has at least 30, which is super cool. There's already 30 bananas on here. By the end of the growth, we might have enough for everybody in the school to have one, which would be awesome. But we're gonna see how far so far. So in 2 weeks, we've got about 30 bananas. And it seems like every day it's starting its next layer of bananas. So that's actually a good point to transition into. So when we are talking about the production of bananas, we have a few things that's really interesting with that. So when we're talking about the part of this plant that is producing the fruit, I'm gonna zoom in so when we're talking we see it, can show you what I'm talking about. We have this whole structure here, and this entire structure is called the inflorescence. And the inflorescence has many different pieces to it. I'm gonna try my best to kind of describe it in some terms that might be understandable to everybody. So, the inflorescence is this entire structure that's producing the bananas and the flowers and the pollen. Alright, so here we are again looking at the inflorescence. And this is the part of the plant on Billy that is actually producing the bananas, as well as the flowers. So, let me get a stick here so I can actually show a little bit better what's going on here. Alright, so we have our bananas here. And the bananas came out of this part. And this part is actually the flowering bud of the plant. And you can see this little flap right here. This flap is called the bract. And each row of these bananas came out of their own bract. So I will include pictures that will show you from the first picture I took. Only this first very, very top row up here of bananas were showing. And then in the next picture, you'll see this row showing. And then it's been a few days, so we've already gotten a whole nother row, and then this one is going to be producing a new row right in there. You can't really see them, but inside there's a bunch of little baby bananas. So what's really cool about this is a good stage to kind of show each part of the plant. So when each layer of the bract opens, it kind of peels open. There's a bunch of layers on here, and when each one opens up like this, it's gonna peel open, just like you're peeling open the banana, right? But upside down. And underneath, let's see if I can zoom in a little bit more. Underneath, each one of the bananas that are underneath look just like this under there, but miniature. They each have little flowers on them. And the flowers open so they can be pollinated. Okay, so this part all contains both the male and female parts of the plant. Okay, so as those female flowers are opening, and then we have the layer of the bract that opens, then that allows for those flowers to be pollinated. So what was cool is the last time I was filming, we actually got to see a lot of flying insects. So we had like some bees and some wasps and possibly even flies that were all flying around and trying to get into those flowers so they could collect some nectar to take home to wherever they were going. But meanwhile, they were helping to pollinate this plant, but this plant doesn't need pollinators specifically. So this is a self-pollinating plant because of the system that we just mentioned here. Okay, so see if you can remember the name of what the system is, and hint, inflorescence. Okay, so this whole inflorescence has both the male and female parts of the plant. So if the bananas don't start producing, they're having some difficulty with their pollination process. So that can mean that something on the system is malfunctioning, or it may be a year that both the male and female organs are not producing. So they may not produce bananas that year, but they might flower and have this part, but they might not produce the bananas. So that's another interesting part, is that this plant is self-pollinating, but the bees and the wasps and the other pollinators probably love and are attracted to this different smells that the flowers put off, and also to collect some of that nectar that might be inside. And then meanwhile collecting some of that pollen and probably passing it along and helping it produce its bananas. So that's another really cool aspect of banana herbs, I'm going to call it from now on, instead of a tree. So we don't continue to call it a tree, because now we know that it is an herbaceous plant, meaning that it's more similar to an herb, and it grows very similar to an herb. If you think of like our herbs here that we have in the garden, this is a perfect example. This is like sacred sage, and y'all know we cut from this often, and we can snip these off, and this plant's going to continue to grow. It's going to continue to produce. So a lot of our plants are like that in the garden. And here's some normal, sage that you might cook with. Same thing. We cut from this all the time. And even this here, you can actually see, this is our garlic chives plants, where we've cut right here, and cut here, cut here. But look, they're still producing more and more greens. So we've cut from this plant probably for a year, and it's continuing to grow more of the greens. And look at this here. Okay, this is actually a perfect example. This looks very similar to the banana, right? Let me take a... Alright, so a few more things we know so far about the banana tree. We have Lola down here enjoying her fresh water out of this kind of red piece that has fallen off of the piece of the banana tree that is flowering. It's called a bract. This thing that's on the ground here, it's called a bract. And it came off of, if we can zoom in and see, man, it's opened up even more. This piece here, you can see one of the flaps open here, and the other layers have fallen off, the bract. That's what that part's called. Then you can see the bananas above, up there, and then underneath that flap there's more, a handle of bananas in there. And there are bees and wasps and things attracted to it because they're flowers. It's producing the pollen, the male part's producing the pollen, as the female part is producing the flower. This large piece will turn into the flower, which is cool. So under each kind of blossom is a rack of potential bananas, which is pretty interesting. All right, so what we're looking at here is actually where the bananas are being produced. So this part right here is actually the big flower on the plant, and then right above you can see the bananas.